Sri Lanka's most powerful news brand.
Good evening and welcome to Primetime News, coming to you live and direct from the Newsfirst studios here in Colombo. I'm Bernadine Chayasinghe. Good evening, Chaturanga.
Good evening to you, Bernadine. I'm Chaturanga Hapwarachi. Let's first take a look at the headlines. President signs Gazette to establish Presidential Commission to investigate fraud and corruption in Sri Lankan Airlines and Mihin Lanka. Arjuna Mahendran, Arjun Aloysius and Kasun Palisena of Perpetual Treasuries Limited named as suspects in the bond scam. Colombo High Court rejects petition filed by Gotabaya Rajapaksa to discharge him from the avant-garde case. Former President of Maldives speaks exclusively to Newsfirst on Supreme Court ruling ordering immediate release. Sri Lanka pile on the runs and eyes big lead at stumps on day 3 of the first test against Bangladesh.
The President has signed the Gazette, which will bring to force the Presidential Commission to investigate activities at Sri Lankan Airlines and Mihin Lanka. The President made this statement during a rally held in Hettipola today.
මම අද ආවේ තව අලුත් වැඩක් දීලා.
I came here today after undertaking a new task. I signed the Gazette for the creation of a Presidential Commission to look into Sri Lankan Airlines and Mihin Lanka. I came here after signing that Gazette. The people who have committed theft know who will get caught. The Bond Commission report states that this crime took place from 2008 to 2016. So you can imagine who is responsible. I am not going to speak about it. I have named the judges who will look into Sri Lankan and Mihin Lanka. They will begin work next week and you will be able to see who has defrauded millions. I am doing all of these things for you and for the country. I will fulfill this responsibility.
මම මේ දේවල් කරනවා ඔබ වෙනුවෙන් රට වෙනුවෙන්.
The Supreme Court of the Maldives has ordered the immediate release of former President Mohammad Nasheed and 8 other opposition leaders, saying their trials had violated the constitution and international law, but it also ordered new trials. Speaking exclusively to Newsfirst, former President Mohammad Nasheed expressed his views on the Supreme Court ruling.
In its ruling on Thursday, the Maldivian Supreme Court said it found that prosecutors and judges had been unduly influenced to conduct politically motivated investigations into the allegations levelled at Nasheed and other opposition leaders who had challenged President Abdullah Yamin. In March 2015, Nasheed was sentenced to 13 years in prison after being found guilty of terrorism.
We have always been advocating and we have always highlighted how wrong the charge was, the trial was, the sentence was, and the imprisonment was. President Yamin has arrested not just only me, he has arrested every single opposition leader, and he has also arrested a number of other possible challenges within his own political party. He has also not been able to work with his own blood brother, and he is very, very isolated. I think it is now very important we see that President Yamin actually resigns. We have an interim arrangement through which we can go into inclusive, free and fair, peaceful elections.
The Supreme Court, which delivered the ruling, has also been part of a number of controversial rulings over the past few years. Reports have also emerged that there may be some pressure on the judiciary in the aftermath of the ruling to release the former president and other opposition leaders.
The judiciary, all last night, the judges were increasingly worried, I was told. The President Yamin had wanted the judges arrested. He had gone and tried to solicit assistance from the Maldives National Defence Force. Fortunately, the rank and file of our military did not want to go and arrest the judges and adhere to President Yamin's orders. President Yamin also wanted this done through the Maldive police services, but the rank and file again refused to obey those orders. These orders are politically motivated illegal orders.
Mohammad Nasheed became the first democratically elected president of the Maldives in 2008. He narrowly missed out on re-election for president in late 2013, losing the presidential runoff by less than 3%. With the Maldives potentially heading in for a presidential election later this year, what lies ahead for the former president and his coalition?
We will beat President Yamin. I am very sure about it. I'm very aware of the views of the people of the Maldives. My view is that President Yamin will not be able to garner enough support to have a reasonable sounding or a reasonable showing in these elections. I don't think President Yamin would necessarily contest, but I think we would have an inclusive, free and a fair election.
We will be back right after a short commercial break.
The people's voice against corruption.
A very good evening. Many members of the United National Party are making statements at present claiming that the United National Party is not involved in the central bank treasury bond scam. However, one question surfaces from amongst the general public. Why are they being so defensive? Why are they saying that they are not involved when there is a lot of incidents to claim that many inside the United National Party are in fact involved? With me today is Faraj Shaukat Ali. Good evening, Fawaz.
Evening, Zulfiq. That's absolutely right. If the United National Party and their members are not involved in this, we wonder why they sprang out of nowhere to appoint their own committee when in fact the President was the first to announce that he would form a committee.
You are referring to the Pitipena committee?
That's right. It was 3 members, known loyalists of their party, and acknowledged that they didn't have the necessary expertise to look into such a matter as the bond scam.
Not only the Pitipena committee. You might recall the first probe that investigated this, chaired by D.E.W. Gunasekwa. Before they could even produce their report, Parliament was dissolved. And then the second probe, chaired by Sunil Hanunetti. What happened over there? Now that is where the most interesting incident takes place, which is now referred to as the footnote incident.
Indeed. The Footnote Club and the Footnoters consisted of all UNP members.
These individuals right here. Let's start off by their names. Harshana Rajakaruna, Hector Apuhami, Abdullah Maroof, Ashok Abe Singha, Ajit P. Pereira, Dr. Harsha De Silva, Vasanta Aluihare, and
Sujiva Senasinghe. And we mustn't forget Sujiva Senasinghe because he turned an author and wrote a book about the bond and made several telephone calls, 223 of them, and a substantial amount of those within the time period of COPE sitting, and later claimed that the calls were made in aid of writing the book. Unfortunately for him, those calls were made about a year earlier.
Indeed, for us. Now, speaking about the matters unearthed by the Presidential Commission of Inquiry, you might recall when former Finance Minister Ravi Karunanayake came before the Commission, how he was grilled by Mr. Dapula Dilivera, one of the most renowned attorneys at the Attorney General's Department, and thereafter how other witnesses were questioned by the team by the Attorney General's Department, including Mr. Yasanta Kodagoda, Priyantha Nawana, Dr. Avanti Pereira, Mrs. Zaida Bawi, and so on. But when 3 others came before the Commission, that changed.
Absolutely. We had, who do we have? Kabir Hashim
and Malik
Samaravikrama. And we had a situation where it was nothing compared, their cross-examination was minuscule compared to what the former finance minister went through.
If I'm not mistaken, I don't think there was a cross-examination with those two ministers, because the
That's
questions
right.
were asked by the commissioners,
themselves.
And then for us, we come to the most important person to ever appear at this Bond Commission. I say important because the incidents surrounding this is also important.
Absolutely.
And that is none other than Prime Minister Ranil
Wickremesinghe. Now, Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe was sent his questions by way of a letter, and the questions were sent to him, and the replies were entertained as on the basis of an affidavit. Now, there's nothing wrong in doing that, Zulfik. The law does provide for that, and the Prime Minister, of course, is hopefully a busy man with a busy schedule. However, it would have been far better for him to claim his innocence by making himself available at the Commission and subject himself to cross-examination just like any other witness.
And for us, speaking of cross-examination, when the Prime Minister came before the Commission, Mr. Dapula de Oliveira was not allowed to ask questions. It was the present Attorney General who asked the questions. Now, for us, on all these incidents that happened at the bond scam and the information that came out at the Presidential Commission of Inquiry, the report by the commissioners clearly states that certain matters need to be investigated thoroughly.
Yes.
And the Attorney General's Department has been vested with a majority of those tasks, and they must, in fact, look into those incidents and produce details and facts to court. Now,
and indeed, Zulfik, and we must bear in mind the former Attorney General and later CJ, Mr. Mompiris, is himself under investigation. So those in authority today must bear in mind that public sentiment is the overriding matter of value. And when public sentiment goes over that value, then action will take place, as indeed the UNP is finding out today, because all their efforts at attempting to derail the process has failed, because the truth will always prevail.
And also for us, we must mention that when you're investigating something, you must follow justice and you must abide by the truth, because for what you do today, you will be held accountable tomorrow, and that is the course of natural justice. Now, speaking of corruption and malpractices on the same point, let's take a step back to the previous regime.
Indeed.
And one important thing that comes to my mind is Sri Lankan Airlines, the national carrier. Look at the state of it for us.
Unfortunately, Sri Lankan Airlines is an absolute shambles. The only time it ever made some form of profit was when it was being managed by Emirates. And even that agreement was cancelled for only God knows for what earthly reason they did that. And the losses has been a tremendous claim on the Treasury.
And the reason identified for those losses is basically, according to well-known sources, is that cronies and relatives were appointed to Sri Lankan Airlines, including the topmost position, the post of chairman.
That's right, and very unfortunately, the chairman who was appointed was actually, he had no expertise whatsoever in running an airline, and he was none other than the brother-in-law of the president of the country, Nishanta Wickremesinghe was his name, and of course his sister was the First Lady. Now, that in itself shouldn't be a disqualification. However, the fact is, when you're running something so acutely important as the national airline, and when so much depends on that, because it drives the tourists into our country, we're an island nation and so on, and the attitude with which they ran that airline was flippant at best and completely disgraceful at worst.
And also reports have clearly mentioned that the fall of Sri Lankan Airlines is mainly because of mismanagement, misappropriation, as well as using assets of Sri Lankan Airlines for one's own personal needs. Now, for us, today an important incident took place in court regarding these three men.
That's right.
These 3 men have been named as suspects by the Criminal Investigations Department, and let's have an in-depth story on that right now.
The people's voice against corruption.
The CID presenting facts before Colombo Fort Magistrate Lanka Jayaratna named Arjuna Mahendran, Arjun Aloysius, Kasun Palisena and Perpetual Treasuries Limited as suspects over the central bank treasury bond issue. The Criminal Investigations Department highlighted there is a need to bring Arjuna Mahendran to the country, and the magistrate issued an order via Interpol for Arjuna Mahendran to appear before the CID and provide a statement before the 15th. An order was issued on the Controller of Immigration and Immigration to inform the CID immediately once Arjuna Mahendran arrives in the country. Additional Solicitor General Yasantha Kodagoda, appearing for the Attorney General's Department, handed over a copy of the report of the Presidential Commission of Inquiry into the bond issue to court. Presenting facts, ASG Kodagoda noted the bond issue is termed as the largest financial crime to take place in recent times and requested court to issue the orders requested by the CID to facilitate the investigations. Thereby 9 orders were issued today, and it includes one to investigate bank accounts of several people, including CEO of Perpetual Treasuries Limited, Kasun Palisena. In addition, an order was made preventing the disposal, sale, trade and transfer of money and assets under the name of PTL or any other entity. The CEO and compliance officer of PTL have been ordered to submit a comprehensive report to the CID with regard to all purchases from bond trading dating from the 27th of February 2015 to March 2016. Court ordered Perpetual Treasuries to immediately submit all documentation regarding the bond transactions. Arjun Aloysius and Kasun Palisena have been barred from overseas travel. Court issued an order to not change the decision taken by the Monetary Board to suspend 2 accounts of Perpetual Treasuries Limited. Meanwhile, the CID was also ordered to submit a progress report on these matters and the investigation on the 26th of February.
The Colombo High Court has rejected the request made by Gotabaya Rajapaksa to acquit and release him from the Avantgarde case.
The case was filed against the former Defence Secretary and 7 others by the Bribery Commission before the Colombo Magistrates Court. The case charges them causing the government a loss of 1,140,000,000 rupees by permitting Avantgarde to operate a floating armoury. The case was filed by the former Director General of the Commission to investigate allegations of bribery or corruption, Dilruksh Dias Wickramasinghe. Gotabaya Rajapaksa objected the case before the High Court, claiming Dias had not obtained written approval from the Commission to file the case and her actions were illegal. However, court pointed out the Director General of the Commission and the Commission itself are considered as one body. The Commission's written approval is not required to file the case.
During the Saturn political debate program aired last night on Sirasa, views were expressed on a media institution reportedly owned by Perpetual Treasuries. Perpetual Treasuries made many investments in a number of industries. One was the investment made on media institutions. We organized media briefings to create awareness on the Janayuga newspaper. As of today, a media head who was very close with the former administration has taken over ownership of this paper. Who is running the UNP publicity campaign? It is Dilip Jayawira. One of the companies attached to his media network is carrying out the publicity campaign. Not only that, we got to know yesterday some serious discussions being held about the Janayuga newspaper. Arjun Aloysius has been in this staff meeting. Aloysius had said that it is not possible to maintain the newspaper and there is a need for a new investor. Then the chief editor of the newspaper had convened another staff meeting and said they need a new investor, and so we are going to bring in Dilip Jayawira. Now the cat is out of the bag. On one side we know the bond money is being spread around. On the other, the bond paper is purchased by Dilip Jayawira. Everyone knows who Dilip Jayawira is and who is behind him, so the connection is very clear. The most serious issue right now is the deals being struck through politics. They are striking deals to protect one another. We should destroy the system. Dilip Jayawira is someone who has allegations against him with regard to artificially inflating prices in the stock market. Views were also expressed on former President Mahinda Rajapaksa, who remains as an advisor of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party, speaking at political rallies organized by other parties.
This is a despicable act. He is not a member of the Flower Bud. Imagine if something like this happened when he was in power. What would have happened to that person? We should also note that when he gets onto the Flower Bud stage, he does not bring Namal Rajapaksa with him. Why doesn't he bring Namal? The people should think about this as well. Is this for the sake of the country's future? As someone who ruled the country, is it ethical for him to engage in such acts? This is like raping one's own mother.
තමන්ගේ මව දූෂණය කරනවා වගේ වැඩක් මේ කරන්නේ. මේක ශිෂ්ට සම්පන්න නෑ. මේක අශීලාචාරයි. බස්සර නැගගෙන බත් පැකට් කාගෙන. හොඳේ ගිහිල්ලා
It's time that we stop getting onto buses and eating on the road so that we can boost the images of politicians. Don't go for such events. Take back your political power. The president said he will swing his sword. You have a sword as well. It is enshrined in the constitution. Leave aside your colored glasses and search for a new path.
පැති කන්නාඩි පාට කන්නාඩි පැත්තකට දාන්න.
Two major reforms are due to be undertaken this year, and that is the introduction of a reflective pricing formula for electricity. Well, first for fuel and then for electricity. You know, over 90% of the losses of the CPC and CEB are due to the fact that they subsidize fuel and electricity. The government forces them to sell at an administrative price below cost, but yet it doesn't recompense them. It doesn't compensate them for the subsidies. So successive governments have been very clever in parking the budget deficit in the CEB and the CPC, and that subsequently gets transferred onto the balance sheets of the state banks. And it's a highly distortionary thing that has been going on forever. So if we are able to get these cost-reflective pricing formula into place for fuel and energy, it will again remove a major distortion in the system and significantly improve the macroeconomic stability.
The High Commissioner for Sri Lanka in India, Chitrangani Vageswara, has signed the framework agreement of the International Solar Alliance at the Ministry of External Affairs of India in New Delhi recently.
ISA was conceived as a coalition of solar resource-rich countries to address their special energy needs and to provide a platform to collaborate on addressing and identifying issues through an agreed common approach. The signed documents were handed over to Mr. Nagaraj Naidu, the Joint Secretary of the Ministry of External Affairs of India. Once the agreement is ratified, Sri Lanka will become a founding member of the International Solar Alliance. The long-term generation expansion plan, approved by the PUCSL, envisions broadening of the solar power generation in the country. The plan highlights that if there are delays in implementing these solar plants, along with other renewable energy sources, it would cause impacts in capacity and energy balances. However, even late last year, ministers of the current administration made attempts to bring in more coal power under the guise of clean coal. This has continuously been rejected by the energy experts as well as environmentalists.
Why is there a sudden need to construct coal power plants? The timing is very suspicious. The cabinet did not accept the proposal because it goes against the government policies. In that case, why was this proposal forwarded? Because this will ensure that we continue to import coal, and everyone knows that there is a scam behind the importation of coal. A unit of power produced from a coal power plant costs 18 rupees and 60 cents. These plants are not up to standard and they face continuous breakdowns. Even now, millions are being spent to refurbish them.
The Ceylon Electricity Board, when they promote coal power, they say they're going to use clean coal. So when other alternatives are coming, the coal industry use this clean coal to justify what they are doing across the world. But in everywhere, the clean coal is equally producing greenhouse gases, which is not a solution for the climate change.
Shifting gears to the political arena once again, former president and advisor to the Sri Lanka Freedom Party, Mahinda Rajapaksa, addressed a meeting in Jaffna in the Tamil language. However, following the defeat at the 2015 presidential elections, Rajapaksa made a statement from Madamulana, claiming his opponent won the election with the votes from the Elam.
Place your trust in us. We are contesting separately. We are a new party with a new vision. We have come before you under the symbol of the flower bud. Remember this. They secured a majority votes from the Elam. They managed to do that because we united the land. We are thankful for your continuous support.
Up next is today's illustrated news by Asankal Aduhetti.
The local government election is a week away and political parties have upped their game to muster support for their candidates.
Shouldn't the deceitful Mahinda Rajapaksa be stopped? He is attempting to come back into the throne, but that is just a dream for him. Those crowns fell down the drain. If he is a brave leader, he should have been in parliament when the motion of no confidence was moved against Ravi Karnanayaka. He is avoiding parliament. He is getting onto the stage of the Podujana Peramuna to mislead the voters.
They say the country needs to have its own values. Russia stopped importing tea, claiming there was a bug in it. They said we have international support, but the US stopped the GSP concession. During Mahinda Rajapaksa's rule, they did not stop giving us aid, but they managed to grab the attention of the Queen. Is that called international support? Which country in this world brings down a prince to celebrate independence when we were under their control before?
When Mahinda Rajapaksa travelled overseas, not a single world leader would come to meet him. He met the king of Swaziland, the man with 32 wives. Such were the visitors to this country. When I met the representative from Swaziland at the World Health Forum, I asked him about the well-being of the king. He said, "Our king is doing well." I said, "Our king is facing his worst time. You've seen his pictures, shaking hands with other world leaders. But what you don't know is that these photographs were taken in the corridors. But our people think very highly of these pictures."
Take up your weapons against rogues and thieves. We must protect the party. We must protect Maitri. Johnny cannot do anything. He faces drug peddling allegations including Kerala ganja, ethanol and arak. He produced arak harmful to the kidneys. Such people cannot work with Maitri.
He says we cannot come close to Maitri. We wish to tell this to SB. We do not eat feces using the mouth we use to eat rice. SB has fallen to that level. We warn SB to be mindful. We will not be anywhere else except with Mahinda, who brought us peace. This is what we have to say to SB.
When a pretty girl is drowning, someone rescues her and then rapes her. When the rapist is questioned why, he said it's because he rescued her. Just because you have saved the nation, you cannot abuse it. What the Rajapaksas did was use the war to ruin the country. He used the veterans as an excuse to build an authoritarian state. Namal, Rohitha and Rajapaksa siphoned off millions under the guise of the war.
On the 10th, you must decide who should be the Prime Minister. Should it be a joker or a patriot? If it is a joker, then Tennyson Kure should have been the Prime Minister in 2004 and not Mahinda. In 2000, it should have been Bandhu Samarasinghe and not Ratnasiri Wickramanayake. You decide. Is it a joker or a Prime Minister?
If Mahinda Rajapaksa does not want power and does not have any greed for power, why is he representing the flower bud? Who needs power? Basil, Gotabaya, Namal, or is it GL? Or can it be the people? They are coming under the symbol of the flower bud because they are greedy for power. There will come a day when Ranil, Gotabaya, Basil and the rest will be counting the bars from their cell.
Colombo mayoral candidate of the United People's Freedom Alliance, Asad Sali, convened a media briefing in Colombo today. The COPE report on the bond matter drawn up by D.W. Gunasekara contains a telephone conversation of the son of Rosie Senanayake, the UNP candidate. She makes statements that she engages in clean politics. However, the COPE committee report has her name on it. There are allegations that they are campaigning on funds collected through the bond scam. We have information that the UNP is spending nearly 350 million for the UNP mayoral candidate.
A public meeting to support the candidates contesting the Hambantota Municipal Council was held today.
The meeting was attended by Deputy Leader of the UNP, Minister Sajid Premadasa. I promise you 5,750 jobs will be made permanent in Hambantota after the 10th. Our opposition party is disturbed by the system under which the appointments were distributed. They are spreading rumours about these appointments as they are cheap ones that don't pay well. During the previous regime, the salary of graduates started from 10,000 rupees. They earn about 30 to 40,000 rupees in the public sector now. Let them say anything they want. When we win on the 10th, the youth will get permanent jobs. Those who criticize us will see how the children will take 40,000 rupees home. The minister also joined in song at the event.
Of the Afro-Asian Century series was held in BMICH in Colombo yesterday. Leading strategist analyst in South Asia and renowned author Nitin Gokhale spoke about India's new security posture during the event.
As I see it, over the next 10 years or so, the competition between India and China, and with the US in the background, and Japan of course on the east and the US in the west, is going to just increase. And I'm afraid the unintended consequences for smaller nations will be not foreseen by many of us. We don't know where it will go. Then maybe some nations will be forced to choose.
Stay tuned for BizFirst Review 360 featuring an exclusive interview with top South Asian defense analyst Nitin Gokhale on how India sees Chinese engagement in the region and Sri Lanka. Some good news there for Sri Lankan cricket fans. With that, we wrap up or we conclude this news broadcast for this evening. I've been Saturagha Parachi.
I'm Bandin Chai Singha. Good night. Take care.